Peace be with you. None of us like to suffer, but all of us have to experience some suffering at some point in our life. That is inevitable. Now, some suffering comes from the outside, from our environment, from other people, and that is very difficult to control. But most suffering, the far majority of it, comes from ourselves. It is self inflicted. Now, there are many ways we hurt ourselves, but the way I wanted to talk about today is addiction. It is one of the greatest self inflicted injuries that exists in this world, especially out here in the West. Addiction claims far more lives than of young people than COVID ever did, for example, for comparison. And that is not including the social suffering and the actual human suffering that accompanies it before death. In the Quran, God warns us about this. This isn't in the Quran for no reason. There's a reason why God chose to talk about this in the Quran. It is a clear and present danger. It is a destruction that is hard to imagine. To understand addiction, you really have to become an addict to fully understand it. It is like being held by a strong individual. Let's say you're 5 years old and you are being held by a grown man. It is that difficult to get away from it. If you are a smoker, a tobacco user, right, then you can understand it a little bit, right? You are also an addict. So now imagine if you quit smoking and you get severe physical symptoms as well and severe depression and stuff like that. It is very, very difficult to get away from. So this is why God warns us about this, because it is such a destructive force. In the 5th chapter of Quran, verses 90 through 92, we're told, O you who believe, intoxicants, khamr in Arabic, and gambling, and altars set up, and dividing by arrows, which is essentially raffling, another game of chance, are filth, devil's work. Avoid them that you may be successful. Surely the devil is trying to introduce hatred and animosity among you by means of intoxicants and gambling, and to keep you away from prayer, and to cause you to forget about God. Will you not then stop? So God tells us exactly what addiction is, what drugs are, right? They're filth, devil's work, and God tells us God tells us what the devil wants to do with that to us, to cause us to fail, to not be successful, and to cause hatred and animosity among us, and to keep us away from prayer, and to cause us to forget about God. And in the 4th chapter of the Quran, verse 43, that is the only reason why Muslims are not allowed to pray. We're told, O you who believe, do not approach prayer while you are intoxicated until you know what you are saying. So if you do that, then God tells you, come right back as soon as you're sober. But while you are intoxicated, then you are not allowed to pray. And if you cannot pray, then you cannot remember God adequately, because that the greatest purpose of prayer is remembrance of God, or dhikr. In the 29th chapter of Quran, verse 45, we're told, and recite that which has been revealed to you from your Lord, and keep up prayer. Surely prayer keeps away from indecency and evil, and remembrance of God is akbar. Remembrance of God is greatest, and God knows what you do. Prayer and addiction are the exact opposite. They are exact opposites, which means one negates the other. If you get high, if you are an addict and you're high 24/7, then you cannot pray. And if you cannot pray, you cannot remember God adequately. But if you pray, you have to be sober, which means you cannot be an addict. So the smart people among us, they listen to the Quran and they take the advice. They say, God knows why I'm being told this. God knows I don't know, so I'm just not going to do this, right? And these are the smart ones among us. Then we have those who are less smart, who try the drug, but they understand addiction. So they turn back to prayer and they don't get too deep into it. Then there are those who become addicts and they suffer. They truly suffer. You can YouTube or Google or TikTok videos from Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia or Skid Row in LA. A lot of that is addiction. You can even do it in Afghanistan. There's a documentary about addiction in Afghanistan if you want to see it. Muslim countries are not immune to this. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came and the Quran was revealed, he was talking to early Muslims who also had problems. Then why would he be talking to them about addiction if they didn't have addiction problems? It's a clear and present danger for all of us. And the antidote to that is Salah. If you are a Muslim, you have to keep Salah. And in a book, in the Quran, that tells you that you have to keep Salah without a question, that is your defining characteristic of a Muslim. Only one time when you are not allowed to keep up Salah, and that is when you are high, when you are intoxicated, when you are drunk. So if you are an addict now, then you have to start praying. And even if you are an addict in recovery, because once an addict, always an addict. You're only always one disaster, one craving away from disaster. People say, "Oh, maybe I can just try one more time." After 10 years of being clean, and boom, I'm a physician. I see that all the freaking time. People fail like that. Something bad happens, their family member dies, something happens, and they are back in that pit of hell that they worked so hard to get themselves out of. So if you are a smart person, never try it. If you are a Muslim, don't ever try it. Have faith in God, believe God. If you are an addict that is in active addiction, you turn to Salah. If you are a Muslim that's an addict, start praying your every single prayer. And guess what? Even if you don't get clean completely, if you keep up every prayer where you used to be high every day, if you used to use 6-7 times a day and you were high constantly, at least if you keep up every Salah, you won't get a chance to get high except at night between Isha and Fajr, and you're going to sleep it off. And even though you are not clean, you're not where you're supposed to be, your destruction is lessened by 90%, and you can become a functional person, and you will not suffer as much, just for the simple fact that you turn to Allah and you keep up prayer. And if you are an addict in recovery, then you too have to keep up prayer, because you are one tragedy away from going back to what you used to love doing, and which will destroy your life completely. In the 5th chapter of the Quran, verse 92, God tells us, "And obey God and obey the messenger, but be warned. If you turn away, if you don't listen to this advice, then on our messenger was only to clearly deliver." You got the message. Now you do with it what you want. If you want to suffer, then ignore it. If you want to save yourself the suffering, then have faith in God and do what you're told. Peace be with you.